A reading from the book of the prophet Amos. Thus says the Lord, for 3 crimes of Israel, and for 4, I will not revoke my word, because they sell the just man for silver, and the poor man for a pair of sandals. They trample the heads of the weak into the dust of the earth, and force the lowly out of the way. Son and father go to the same prostitute, profaning my holy name. Upon garments taken in pledge, they recline beside any altar, and the wine of those who have been fined they drink in the house of their God. Yet it was I who destroyed the Amorites before them, who were as tall as the cedars, and as strong as the oak trees. I destroyed their fruit above, and their roots beneath. It was I who brought you up from the land of Egypt, and who led you through the desert for 40 years, to occupy the land of the Amorites. Beware, I will crush you into the ground as a wagon crushes when laden with sheaves. Flight shall perish from the swift, and the strong man shall not retain his strength. The warrior shall not save his life, nor the bowman stand his ground. The swift of foot shall not escape, nor the horseman save his life. And the most stout-hearted of warriors shall flee naked on that day, says the Lord. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Remember this, you who never think of God.
Remember this, you who never think of God.
Why do you recite my statutes and profess my covenant with your mouth, though you hate discipline, and cast my words behind you?
Remember this, you who never think of God.
When you see a thief, you keep pace with him, and with adulterers you throw in your lot. To your mouth you give free rein for evil. You harness your tongue to deceit.
Remember this, you who never think of God.
You sit speaking against your brother. Against your mother's son you spread rumors. When you do these things, shall I be deaf to it? Or do you think that I am like yourself? I will correct you by drawing them up before your eyes.
Remember this, you who never think of God.
Consider this, you who forget God, lest I rend you and there be no one to rescue you. He that offers praise as a sacrifice glorifies me, and to him that goes the right way, I will show the salvation of God.
Remember this, you who never think of God.
If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Dominus vobiscum. Lectio Sancti Evangelii secundum Matteum.
When Jesus saw a crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other shore. A scribe approached and said to him, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus answered him, "Foxes have dens, and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to rest his head." Another of his disciples said to him, "Lord, let me go first and bury my father." But Jesus answered him, "Follow me, and let the dead bury their dead."
Verbum Domini.
So we're continuing in the Gospel of Matthew after the Sermon on the Mount. And we see that many crowds are following him due to a combination of factors. They have seen the miraculous signs and the healings that Jesus has been performing, and they have also heard his extensive teaching on the Sermon on the Mount. So the people, when they heard his teaching, they were astonished because of the way that he taught. You see, the teachers at the time, the scribes, would often refer to, when they were teaching, they would refer to the authority of their predecessors, of past rabbis in their teaching. And so they would quote these past rabbis as kind of lending credence to their teaching. But Jesus, when he teaches, it's quite different from the scribes because he teaches without having to rely on his predecessors, having to rely on the authority of others. He teaches as one who has authority. He teaches with authority. He is able to convince others and to attract a large crowd because he teaches with authority and with conviction. And so in today's reading, we come across one of the first real challenges of discipleship that we see in the Gospel of Matthew. Upon seeing the great crowds that were gathered before him, Jesus exercises his authority, and he orders the disciples to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. And this is the first, you could say this is a first precedent for Jesus in his ministry, because on the other side of the Sea of Galilee was a territory that was largely occupied by the Gentiles. It's where the Decapolis was located. This was 10 cities that were largely occupied by the Gentiles. So really this was pretty much the first foreign mission of Christianity. And Jesus, had already really begun his mission to the Gentiles with the healing of the centurion's servant before. And now he is preparing to enter into this territory on the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee and the eastern side of the Jordan River. So those who follow Jesus at this point are really committing themselves to this mission. So in today's gospel reading, we catch up with two disciples who come to Jesus with the desire to follow him to the other side. And perhaps they're maybe not totally aware of what they're committing themselves to. So the first is a scribe who has obviously been impressed by Jesus' teaching on the Mount, and he even calls Jesus by the title, teacher. And this zealous scribe is willing to follow Jesus wherever he goes. Now, Jesus probably sees that this scribe is perhaps not fully aware or doesn't fully understand what he's getting into, following Jesus to the other side, the kind of sacrifice that he would have to make. And Jesus makes this clear that the scribe would have to give up certain earthly comforts. The Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. He would have to give up certain earthly comforts in order to follow him. So while on mission, Jesus is saying that Jesus and his disciples have nowhere to lay their heads. So in other words, in this way, Jesus is calling the scribe to an even greater faith, an even greater trust in Jesus. The scribe merely sees Jesus as a teacher. He calls Jesus teacher. But Jesus is calling him to see much more in him. The scribe must place his trust in the Lord, that the Lord will provide for his needs. Now, it's not clear from the text whether the scribe was dissuaded by Jesus' words or if he actually followed Jesus. Now, the second person who comes to Jesus wishes to delay following Jesus until he has had the opportunity to bury his father. Now, it's not clear, again, from the text how long this will take. This could take several years. I mean, who knows? The person's father could still be living. It could be some kind of, family obligation, whatever it might be. And so, this could take some time before he would finally be able to follow Jesus. And so Jesus challenges this disciple to put his priorities in order. When Jesus is on mission and he calls disciples to accompany him, then what he is saying here is that there is nothing else that is more important than Jesus' call to mission. And that would include even one's duties to one's family. Now, this does not mean that Jesus is requiring him to abandon his father, but that the disciple must leave the burial to those who are perhaps spiritually dead, those who will not follow Jesus, those who refuse to follow Jesus. So the fact is that Jesus calls every Christian to a particular mission, according to our state in life. As Lumen Gentium tells us so beautifully, that our common vocation as Christians is holiness. This is the universal call to holiness that we hear about. And this means that all are called to pursue holiness according to their state in life. However, some people are called to follow Jesus in a way that might appear to require even greater sacrifice, even though God provides the grace that is needed for that vocation, especially in the priesthood and in the consecrated life. And these vocations may call forth a deeper faith and trust in divine providence and a closer discipleship of the Lord. Those who enter the consecrated life must be willing to leave behind their previous life. That would include, their family and their friends and so forth, their previous life, even their work, whatever it might have been, their careers, possibility of having a family of their own, in order to follow the Lord exclusively. But even those who are not called to a consecrated or a priestly vocation are called to discipleship. That includes all of us. All of us are called to discipleship in one way or another. Priests enable people to encounter Christ in the sacraments, and consecrated persons are signs of the coming kingdom. But lay people have the crucial mission of spreading the gospel wherever they are, in their particular spheres of influence. In your family, your friends, community, wherever it is that you might go. Bringing Jesus to workplaces, to workout gyms, to stores, restaurants, anywhere else you go. Not just in word, but also in deed, by living the Christian faith. The laity are nourished and strengthened by the sacraments, and then they're sent forth to go on mission. And the dismissal that we hear at the end of Mass, ite missa est, go, it is the dismissal. This has even the tone of mission in it. We are sent forth after Mass, after partaking of Holy Communion. We are sent forth to bring the Lord into our daily lives, into everywhere that we go. That's why it's so important to have to understand the mission of the laity in the world. That the laity are called to be that leaven in the world. And this is where the laity is really a force with which to reckon. I mean, just imagine if all of the Catholic laity really strove to live out this mission on a daily basis, a mission of love, a mission of conforming ourselves more and more to Jesus, of spreading the truth of the gospel everywhere we go, to allow Jesus to purify ourselves more and more from our sin. Then indeed the powers of hell would not stand a chance. So let's take this opportunity with this gospel today to examine our lives, to recognize the things about ourselves that might be holding us back from fully living our faith, and to pray that the Lord may free us so that we might carry out our particular mission.